Grab your cocktail and get ready for this episode of the Old Fashion Masonic Podcast. Welcome to the Old Fashion Masonic Podcast, where we talk all things Freemasons while drinking an old fashioned. I'm Brian, and today, just as the thumbnail showed, we're talking about what would Freemasonry look like if we just burned it down and started all over. Now, some of you are about to click off, which is fine because you're not really going to be part of the solution. This is a healthy conversation for us to say, hey, with our leadership that's in place and with the membership dwindling, we really need to take a new look at what we're doing in Freemasonry. So let's get right into it. So in all businesses, fraternal organizations, anything we're in part of, there are three leadership challenges we must overcome if we even think that we're going to improve an organization. Insert organization, but for here, we're definitely going to talk about masonry, right? So we need to find what's our unique definition of success. What do we think as Freemasonry is defined as success, right? The other thing, do we work as distinctively as we hope to compete? We'll talk about that later. And are we learning as fast as the world is changing? We know how Freemasonry likes to kind of lag along a bit, right? So we really need to define what made us successful. Was it the camaraderie? Was it the fellowship? Was it men just wanting to be part of something and included? Was it the world wars? All of these things we need to find out what it was at the height of Freemasonry. What made us successful? We need to really kind of go back and understand that, right? The other thing, we need to be very deliberate in our actions if we want to compete. So we're going to have to put the work in. So if we say, hey, we want to be the best lodge in Fort Worth, Texas, what are we doing? And are we very deliberate? Are we acting the part? And also, as an individual, forget just the leaders, but as an individual in your lodge, are you willing to not be limited? Leaders and memberships, the makeup of our membership, we must be flexible if we're even going to think that this is going to be around in another 20 years. Just think about these first three things, right? The strategy is going to really have to start with originality. The goal is not to be the best at what lots of other organizations already do. We need to be the only fraternity that does this. So let's think about this. We need to stand out as Masonry when we're competing against the Lions Club or Rotary or video games, all the other crap that we compete against. We need to stand out for something special. There's a reason people are joining and not coming back. What makes us special? We need to really focus on that. We also need to be the only fraternal organization that delivers this experience. We need to really define what that is. Is it camaraderie? Is it fellowship? Is it because, hey, you get to wear be a Mason and rock the square and compass? What is it that makes us special? You need to ask yourself that. If you can't answer that question, we certainly don't know how to solve the problem. There's an article written in 1959 that has been kind of morphed over the years, and it's called The 50 Reasons Why We Can't Change. I would really like for everyone to Google that. It's really kind of interesting. E.F. Borish, he was a product manager for Milwaukee Gear Company, and he created this list of 50 reasons that people say that change can't happen within their organization, right? This was written in 1959, around the height of Masonry, right? And probably when we started to peter out. So we're not going to cover all 40, but do any of these reasons why people say an organization can't change do they seem to ring true, right? We've never done it before, or nobody else is doing it. It's never been tried before. Well, we've tried it before, right? Another company or person's tried it before. We've been doing it this way for 25 years. Past masters say it can't be done. The Grand Lodge says it can't be done. The trustees won't like it. The old guys say it can't be done. It can't be done. Just think of all of these things that we've heard, right? You've heard one or all of these. I've heard most of them, right? We don't have the money. We don't have the manpower. It's too visionary. It's too progressive. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. It's too radical. It's beyond my responsibility. It's not my job. If you've got a leader that's sitting in one of your soft chairs in lodge and they'll say it's beyond my responsibility, it's not my job, you need to vote them out at the next election. That goes with your Grand Lodge. If you have a Grand Lodge officer that says any of that, vote them out. You have the right to vote them out. Right? Others may say, hey, we don't have the time. It's contrary to our customs. Customs smustoms, right? We need to, do you think the way that they did lodge in the 1700s is the way we do lodge now? Hell no. We've evolved a little bit because we've had to. If somebody says it's not our problem, vote them out. I don't like it. You're right, but we're not ready for this, that, all of the things. We've heard all of these. We need to, again, go look at this article by E.F. Borscht. It was written in 1959. It's on Google, of the 50 reasons why people say organizations won't change, right? Some other things, we can't take the chance, we'd lose money on it. Well, I'd argue this, as your membership keeps dwindling away, we're getting our asses handed to us anyway. There are folks that can't afford to pay for lodge. It might be too long to get our return. Well, in business, in any business that I've been in, and if we're not treating the lodges like a business, that's part of our problem, right? I know what the average customer value is on any business that I've ever been involved with. So if I have a customer that's worth $2,000, I need to figure out what my cost of acquisition is. So if our average Mason's staying with us 10 years and your lodge dues are $300, well, your average value of that customer is $3,000. So put a value on it. What's it worth to get them? What's it worth to retain them? What's it worth to acquire them? All of those should be maybe something that's in the initiation fees that's a little bit different from dues. Start thinking of it as a business, right? What needs a committee, or if you hear this, vote this person out if they're in office. It's impossible. There's nothing within reason of a discussion that's impossible, right? I believe that we've been playing it safe, and frankly, it's quite dangerous. And that's part of the reason why we are where we are. We failed to raise dues when we should have through the years as membership started to decline. And there are many lodges that just can't even afford to stay open. We've been playing it safe for too long, right? So change begins when people and organizations finally conclude that the risk of trying something new is lower than the cost of clinging on to what's worked in the past. So think about this. The risk of trying something new is much lower than holding on to the way that we've always done it. Try something new. It's a much lower risk. Think about those. Think about this particular piece right here. The risk of trying something new is lower than the cost of holding on to the way it's worked in the past. That's scared, right? So we've all heard of deja vu, right? George Carlin did a bit years ago. Yes, I know who George Carlin is. Some of our listeners may not. Go look him up. He's a hilarious dude. But he talked about the virtues of Vuja, which is the opposite of deja vu. So for folks that deja vu, right? If you feel like, oh man, I've been here and I've done this before, right? So it's like, oh, this is deja vu. Well, look at it from the opposite way. How about the virtues of Vuja? Looking at something like you've never seen it before. We need to look at Masonry like we've never seen it before. Develop just a new line of sight and figure out what is this going to look like in the future? What should it look like now for our membership? And all of our strategic plans, if your lodges don't have a strategic plan, you're wrong. If your grand lodges don't have a strategic plan, they're absolutely wrong. But on all strategic plans, those committees need to have at least one new member in there, untainted. Anytime that we've had successes in business, we'll bring in outsiders, or our sphere of influence in our other businesses, we've had a makeup of everyone. People have been there 20 years, people have been there 20 days. If you want to evolve a culture and evolve our fraternity, we need a fresh set of eyes, because the old dogs, us that have been around forever, we're not the only people. We're actually part of the problem, right? So MGM, we've heard of MGM probably last year because they had this massive hack, and all the casinos were hacked, and it is what it is, right? So they did a case study. They brought a new president in and said, hey, we want to do some renovations, some remodeling, and what do we want to do? But it was a little deeper than that with this president. He said, we actually need to know what the real question should be. We need to literally look at everything like we're starting from scratch, right? So the old question, think about this in Masonry, which was an old question with MGM. How do we make improvements on what we have in place? So that's the old question. All right, how do we look at it, Masonry, with what we already have in place? That shouldn't be the question. The question should be, if we were to start from scratch with no regard, what would we do? Push Masonry to the side. If I was going to start a fraternity today from scratch with no regard, what would we do? We have to throw everything on the wall until we take it out. So if you are going to start a lodge today from scratch with no regard, what would you do differently? So I believe there are three elements of the organizations in the future. There are a lot of articles on this. So there's bits and pieces that I pulled from other articles to kind of put this piece together. So all organizations in the future, they must offer something that's hard to come by, right? A separation. They must make a commitment to the member or the customer. And they need to be intensely human, right? We need to be able to pivot. So what do we offer in Masonry that's hard to come by? Camaraderie? Maybe. Is that hard to come by? Do we offer a support like nobody else? I don't know. You need to ask yourself the question at just Masonry, to your lodge level, to your district level, to your area level, to the Grand Lodge level. What are we offering that's hard to come by? What's the commodity, right? And once we have members in, what commitment are we making to that member? And are we following through? Oh, we make good men better. How? And what's the follow-up? What's the follow-up? When people aren't showing back up to lodge, are we following up? Why? We need to be intensely human, not just robotic by numbers. If folks aren't coming to lodge, you need to call them. If they say, man, I'd sure like to, I'd like to come to lodge, but I don't want to do my dinner at 6 and then lodge at 7. I'd prefer to do the lodge at first at 6 because it gets into family time after, and I could stay for dinner if I want. Make that poll. You guys can switch it, change your charge, and get with the Grand Lodge. Ask your members that come to lodge what they like. Then ask your members who aren't coming to lodge what they'd like to see. Poll your customers, your members, right? We also need to have a little more confidence coming into this face of uncertainty. What's Masonry look like in 10 years? We need to go from, what keeps us up at night? When I was a master, like what stresses me out? What's keeping me up at night about the lodge, about managing a lodge of our size, right? To what gets me up in the morning? What excites me to go to lodge? So what keeps me from going to lodge, and what gets me excited to come back to lodge? We need to have a little more confidence, right? The other thing, I want to blast myself and no one else. So, because I know some other uh, masters do this, right? For me, when I would run a meeting, I wanted to make it efficient, a clean message, efficient, boom, and not keep somebody there 8 hours. I should not have worried about making it so efficient, and I should have worried more about making it memorable. Now, there'd be some arguments. Oh, you did this, you did this. There are a lot of great memories, but every meeting should have been memorable, right? Here's a great quote that I saw, and I thought it was very relevant. In a world being reshaped by technology, what men are hungry for now is a deeper and more authentic sense of community. I've mentioned this on several videos. As Masons, we're really missing the boat on getting involved in our community. So I asked you this question, what's your lodge doing? Oh, we do a pancake feed twice a year. That's great. That's your fundraiser. You're not doing it for the community. You're doing it for a fundraiser. What are you doing for the community? What are we doing? What are you able to tell when a member comes in and wants to be part of a larger sense of community? What are we telling them that we're offering, that we're doing in the community? You'd be surprised if we start doing it in the community, what we're going to get in return as members. Ask yourself this is all about having honest questions with ourselves, right? Also, we need to have a better connection between growth and culture. We're living in a time of unprecedented abundance. We've got competition with time with kids and video games and TV and all these other fraternal organizations. What do we offer that's scarce? It kind of goes back to that question. What do we offer that sets us apart? Can you answer that question? What are we doing that's innovative? Do we know what makes people tick? Do we know what makes our members tick? Are we talking to them? When folks are wanting to join Masonry, why should they choose you? What do we do that when we're asking for that most precious commodity of time? What are we doing? What's our spiel? What are we doing? The job of our leaders is to see what others haven't seen and get us first, right? We need to be innovative. You need to get these new members. New is not young. These new members on your sphere of influence. And the other thing is we need to find out when we're asking for somebody's time, what aren't others doing that we can swoop them up, right? What is unfulfilled? When you're sitting at home, I'm sitting at home watching TV, scratching away. What is going to bring people out of their jammies and coming back to lodge? What are we doing? The other thing, you need to be real careful of this. Beware the paradox of expertise, right? We all know these guys. I got it figured out. I know this and I know this. This is that old guy syndrome. Don't let what you know limit what you can imagine. So I've got it figured out. You don't. Really think out of the box. Are our leaders moving fast enough with the changing world? Are we doing a good job? Are we evolving? The answer is no. It's a snap no. Masonry, we're not evolving, but we're not challenging ourselves. We're okay with status quo. If you're still watching this, you need to be challenging our system, and not to be rambunctious. It's to protect it. If you have kids, grandkids, nephews, cousins that you want to join later, you have to be, we talk about protecting the West Gate. You need to protect what we have now. We need to do this, right? We need to be a bigger part of this. We can't, we can't be so entrenched in the way it was that we can't imagine what it can be, right? The most effective leaders that I've ever been around and ever worked with in my many years, they're the biggest learners. They're constantly trying to learn and evolve. Do you have the right leaders in place? If not, vote them in. Get them. You have that control. You have that vote, right? So something kind of interesting. I come from a real estate background, folks that you don't know. So there's a guy in South Beach, Florida. And if anybody's been to South Beach, the folks there love their cars and love all their bougie everything. So our Florida listeners, we know you're a little bit bougie about your cars. That's okay. So what you're seeing on the screen is a pimped out parking garage. It's 111, or I'm sorry, 1111 Lincoln Road. It's in South Beach, Miami, Florida. Uh, but when this was being developed, Robert Winnett, he was the creator of this. He said, "There's no such thing as a commodity, even in parking," right? I talk a lot about commodities. So here's a quote that when I was reading an article about him: "Nothing we do here is what you expect," talking about his parking garage. "We said to ourselves, let's look at what a parking garage is and twist every single notion we have about it." So this parking garage, they're wider, they're well lit. They've got places for meeting rooms. They've got shopping in there, strip center, stuff for your car. They've got everything. It's not just a parking garage, right? So if we take Robert Winnett's approach, what he had for his parking garage that you think that can't be changed, it's a parking garage. We need to ask ourselves, what do we need to do with masonry, right? We need to look at every single thing that we think it is and discuss every single notion about it. You know, we're not taking away how we open and close. The old schoolers that are still here wanting to pick me apart and be naysayers, buzz off, right? That's not what we're here for. We're here to every single notion. Do we have to do dinner before lodge? Do we have to do dinner after lodge? Can we open lodge and go from labor to refreshment and have a dinner and then come back? Does degree work have to be the same way? Yes, the words and but can we add different things to it? Are there things that we can do? Do we have to always meet at the same lodge? We can move our charter. Do we always have to have dinner at lodge? Do we always have to have dinner at a restaurant? Can we bring someone in? Can the Daughters of the Nile, the LOS, bring food in so we work together? Can we work with the Demolay or the Rainbow Girls? We need to, everything that we think we know, we need to dissect it and discuss every single notion. It is our job as Masons right now to get back and fix what's going on to try to save it. What we think masonry is now, let's just look at it through the lens of if it were burned down today, how would we start over? Thanks for watching the Old Fashion Masonic Podcast. I hope you like it, shared, and challenge me on everything that I've said. I've got broad shoulders. I can handle it. Thanks.